Welcome to the Knight class. This is Coach Knight. Today we are learning about how to use the good old quadratic formula. I am going to make a little extra room up here. I'm going to write the quadratic formula up here, and this is what you're going to be using for all your problems today where we're solving for the quadratic. So this is one of those formulas that you need to memorize, and it is x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac, all divided by 2a. That is the quadratic formula.
Sir.
If you notice, this part should look familiar, the negative b over the 2a. That was your axis of symmetry formula. So it is part of the quadratic formula. The quadratic formula is on your formula sheet in Algebra 1 for the state test. So you don't have to memorize it, but it is a good idea to have it memorized for the ACT, because they do not give you a formula sheet on the ACT, and they will expect you to know the quadratic formula. So how do we use it? Well, first we make sure our equation is in standard form. So we have x squared minus 7 equals 4x. I'm going to set it equal to 0 first. So I'm going to move that negative 4x over. That will leave us with x squared minus 4x minus 7 in standard form. And remember, if you don't remember, standard form is y equals ax squared plus bx plus c. That is the standard form. So our problem, we just need to know what is a and b and c. So in our problem, a equals 1, b equals negative 4, and c equals negative 7. And after you figure that out, it is simply plugging in and simplifying. So x will equal negative, I'm going to put parentheses everywhere I see a letter. So negative parentheses plus or minus the square root of parentheses squared minus 4 times parentheses all over 2 times parentheses. And I'm going to go in and I'm going to plug in a, b, and c. So this first parentheses is a b. So b in my problem was negative 4. So negative 4 goes there, and negative 4 goes there. A in my problem was 1. It goes there and there. And c in my problem was negative 7. It goes there. And we work that out. I work it in sections. I do 3 sections. I'll do different colors. So this is a section. Do a different color for another section. The part under the square root is a section, and the bottom is a section. And I simplify all of those sections. So negative and negative 4 will be positive 4 plus or minus the square root. Negative 4 squared, don't forget your parentheses there because it is important. Parentheses negative 4 squared minus 4 times 1 times negative 7. Put that in your calculator and you get 44 divided by 2. That is your answer. However, if it says round to the nearest tenth or hundredth, you can just put it in your calculator. If it doesn't say anything about rounding, you can just leave it in radical form. However, this radical can be reduced. So if you'll remember, 44, we do our little pyramid. So that would be 2 and 22 and 2 and 11. And as you can see, we can bring out 2 2's. So 4 plus or minus 2 square root of 11 divided by 2. And then since we have this number and this number and this number all divisible by 2, we can divide them all by 2. And that would be my final answer. 2 plus or minus the square root of 11 over 1, basically. So You don't have to put the over 1. So it's just 2 plus or minus the square root of 11. Like I've told you before, on the state test, I don't believe they require you to simplify your radical, so they would probably accept this answer, okay? But technically, this is the simplified version, okay? And like I said, if you wanted it the decimal, you would just put x equals 2 plus the square root of 11 in your calculator, and x equals 2 minus the square root of 11 in your calculator. And if you did that, just so you know, make sure you're getting it right. The plus would be positive 5.3, and again, I'm rounding to the nearest tenth there. And the minus would be, I believe it's negative something, negative 1.3. And so those would be your answers. So that's our first one. How do we do? Not too bad. All right, let's try another one. Try 2 more actually. Again, first step is to make sure it equals 0. So I'm going to add 4x and subtract 21 over here. And again, I'm just doing that so it equals 0. It needs to equal 0 before you plug it in, okay? So that's going to be x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times a times b, all over 2 times a. Okay, so in my problem, b is positive 4, a is 1, and c is negative 21. So that would be, again, I'm doing in my sections. If I did negative 4, negative a positive 4 is negative 4 plus or minus the square root. So the next section is this 4 squared minus 4 times 1 times negative 21. That will be 100. Oops, excuse me. That will be 100 divided by 2. This one's actually pretty simple because it will reduce. Negative 4 plus or minus the square root of 100 is 10 divided by 2. So my 2 answers, let's see here, negative 4 plus 10, negative 4 plus 10 divided by 2 would be 6 over 2, which is 3. And the other answer would be negative 4 minus 10 divided by 2. Negative 4 minus 10 would be negative 14 divided by 2, which is negative 7. So x equals 3, x equals negative 7. So we've done 2 problems so far, and I want you to notice we have had 2 answers both times. Now the reason because of this is because this number under the radical is positive, and every time the number under the radical is positive, you will have 2 real solutions, okay? This number under the radical is called the discriminant, okay? D-I-S-C-R-I-M-I-N-A-N-T, discriminant. That's what the number is under the radical. It's not including the radical, it's what the number is under the radical, okay? So the discriminant on the first one we did was 44. The discriminant on this one we did next, number 2 is, number 2 part A, I should say, is 100. All right, so let's do another one here. We just need to move our 24 over first. That will be x squared minus 2x minus 24 equals 0. And we plug it into our quadratic formula. So let me make some room to get rid of that line right there. Okay, so we're going to have x equals negative b plus or minus the square root b squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2 times a. A in this problem is, or excuse me, B in this problem is -2. A in this problem is 1, and C is -24. So again, simplify that. In our little sections, we have the first part is 2 plus or minus the square root of something. I always do that part last because you have to put it in the calculator. So we got parentheses -2 squared minus 4 times 1 times -24. That is also 100. How about that? So we're going to have 2 plus or minus 10. The square root of 100 is 10, divided by 2. And simplified there, x will equal 2 plus 10 is 12, divided by 2 is 6. 2 minus 10 is -8, divided by 2 is -4. Again, you get 2 plus 10 over 2, and you also get 2 minus 10 over 2. Okay, so those are my two real answers. Example 3 says the function shown represents the height of a frog t seconds after it jumps off a rock. How many seconds is the frog in the air before it lands? So this is a problem we've been having a lot. We are figuring out how long is this part. How long does it take for him to, from when he jumped to when he lands, excuse me. So it gives us our equation up here, and all we're going to do is plug in 0 for y, because the height when he lands, he will be 0 feet high when he lands. So basically we're doing the same thing we've been doing. We're going to use the quadratic formula today though, okay? So putting all my parentheses, and then it's just a matter of plugging in. It's already in standard form, so that makes it pretty simple. So B would be 10, goes there and there. A is -16, goes there and there. And C is 0.75. And we simplify that. So I'm going to come down here to the bottom. We're going to have x equals -10 plus or minus the square root of something over 2 times -16 is -32. So let's figure out what goes under that radical. Let's find that discriminant, remember, is the name of that. 10 squared minus 4 times -16 times 0.75. That is 148. And as far as I know, that's not a perfect square. Let me double check. I know it's not. I don't know why I'm checking, but square root of 148 is 12.16. Yeah, so that is not a perfect square. So we are going to simplify, or like I said, you could probably just leave it like that on the test. I'll tell you what I'll do. Let's round this one. Let's round it to the nearest, we'll just go to the nearest tenth. So if I round it, this is what you're going to put in the calculator. You're going to say -10 plus square root of 148 divided by -32, and you're going to say -10 minus the square root of 148 divided by -32. Okay? So if you put that first one in the calculator, -10 plus the square root of 148 divided by -32. When you put this in your calculator, you need to make sure you put the top in parentheses. Otherwise, your calculator is going to mess you up. Okay? And what do I mean by that? I mean up here, you need to put the top in parentheses and then divide by -32. Okay? Or if you don't want to do that, after you put the top in your calculator, you can hit enter and then divide by -32. Either way. So the first answer we get is -0.0. I said I was going to do to the 10th, but we'll go to the 100th. Negative 0.07. And this one over here, if you subtract them, you get 0.69. So we are talking about time. So, and time does not, we don't go back in time, so we don't worry about that negative answer. It is just the positive x equals 0.69 seconds. That's not very long in the air, which is about right. It's a frog. It's not jumping very high. All right. This one, same thing. We'll do it real quick, just so you can see how quick and easy it is once you get the hang of it. Again, I know I haven't been doing it, but I would recommend writing the formula down every problem. It will help you to memorize it, and like I said, you're not going to have to memorize it for the state test, but it is so good to know in all your other math classes what the quadratic formula is, because you will use it a lot. So it's the same problem, it's just a different equation. So this time, again, we're going to let y be 0, and then we set it up. So x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2 times a. And we plug in. So b is 10 in this problem. A is negative 16. Looks familiar. And c this time is 0.3. So pretty much the same exact problem, except c is 0.3 this time. So we got negative 10 plus or minus the square root of something over negative 32. Let's see what that something is this time. Let's see here. We're going to plug in 0.3. Oops. And we get 119.2. 119.2. And again, we put those in our calculator. And again, you do not have to write this down. I'm just writing it down so you can see how I'm putting it in my calculator. Okay, I'm putting it in exactly like you're seeing it here, except I am going to put parentheses around the top part. Okay, so let's see here. Put all this in. All right, got it all in, hit enter. For the first one, it is negative 0.03 seconds. And for the other one, when we subtract it, I bet it's going to be positive. It is 0.65 seconds. So this would be the answer that we would use, again, because negative 0.03 seconds is going back in time, so we don't want to go back in time. All right. Example 4 talks about understanding and using the discriminant. Remember, the discriminant is that number we get under the radical, and if it is positive, we are going to get 2 real solutions. I didn't talk about what it would be if it wasn't positive, so let me write those down for you real quick. If your discriminant, of course, I'll start with the one we know. If b squared minus 4ac is greater than 0, if it's positive, you get 2 real solutions, okay? If it's equal to 0, you get 1 real. And if it's negative or less than 0, you get no real. Okay, there'll be no real solutions. So it says, how can you determine the number of solutions of a quadratic equation without solving it? That is the way you do it. Okay, so our example problem, just to show you how we are going to do some here. Remember, the discriminant is just All it is the b squared minus 4ac. It's just the part under the radical, and that's all you have to find, okay? So, discriminant b squared minus 4 times a times c. In our problem, b is negative 10, a is 1, and c is 25. So we stick all that in our calculator. Negative 10 squared minus 4 times 1 times 25. I got 0. And so my discriminant is 0, which means I have one real solution, or one real root as they are calling it. They are saying roots, but understand solution roots means the same thing. Zeros mean the same thing. All right. For this one, we're going to do again negative b, or excuse me, not negative b, just b squared minus 4 times a times c. B in this one is negative 6, a in this one is negative 1, and c is negative 10. Again, a, there's b, there is c. Okay, we plug that in our calculator and we get, let's see here, negative 6 minus 4 times negative 1 times negative 10. Boom. I get negative 4. So my discriminant is negative 4, which means I have 0 real roots. Okay. Those are very, very easy. Simple as can be. Okay, you're not using the whole quadratic formula, you're just using the part under the square root. All right. These are some more. Did I do the same ones? I'm sorry. All right, so here is our little summary. Okay, here is the standard form of the equation right here. Notice you're going to plug in numbers. You need to know what a, b, and c is in order to put it in the quadratic formula, and then the discriminant is just the b squared minus 4ac. Okay, if the discriminant is positive, you have 2 real solutions. If it's negative, you have no real solutions, and if it is 0, you have 1 real solution. Okay, again, same type function down here. If it has a negative discriminant, it is not going to be crossing the x-axis like it is here. Okay, this one crosses twice, therefore it had 2 real solutions. Okay, hope this video helps. Have a great day, and we'll see you next time. As always, stay above the line.